When you're in winter's favorite town, the snow-covered mountains surround you. A historic Main Street charms you. And every day brings a new adventure. Welcome to Park City, Utah. Naturally, winter's favorite town. Join the experience at visitparkcity.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmund.
Welcome to the Business Mechanic Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Today I have my business partners joining me in results-driven leadership, Tony Penn and Danny Lands. We're going to talk today about one of our favorite topics, one of the most important topics any results-driven leader must be very good at, and that's the topic of performance management. Now, let me make clear that in our architecture, our viewpoint, how we approach performance management in results-driven leadership, a lot of people misconstrue this. This isn't about writing people up and trying to chase people off. This isn't a punitive approach. Performance management, and the topic we're going to talk during this podcast about, is how to get maximum performance out of every member of your team all the time. And wouldn't that make your life so much easier as an executive or a leader within your organization, a manager, even if you're a team lead within the organization? These topics we're going to talk about today are going to be valuable to you and your performance like almost nothing else you will ever be able to capture in your leadership toolbox. First thing I want to throw out to my handsome partners here is asking the question, Tony, what do you think some of the keys, the most important keys to effective performance management are?
Well, first of all, thank you, Vaughn, for having me on today. Appreciate it. The keys have always been for me to get actually any result out of the people that directly report to me has been the frequency of communication. That's where it has always started, because the whole concept of annual reviews or quarterly or biannual or whatever the heck it is never really resonated with me, because not that they don't need to be done, but that's really not the most effective way to determine how people are performing and to ensure that they understand how they're performing. The second part of that is the clarity of the message. We all suffer from this same disease of thinking that everybody understands us clearly when we speak, because it's so clear to us. We're so confident that we're able to communicate effectively, that when we do communicate, we think everything's understood. And then when we see the performance that doesn't match what we felt we discussed or the feedback that we provided, we get super frustrated. We go home and we get pissed off. And so, as opposed to looking at ourselves and determining, am I truly making an impression, or am I making a connection? Are people understanding what I'm saying? Are the expectations clear? Because the clarity and the quality of the feedback is what determines how effective it becomes and whether you will ultimately see any level or change in performance. So those are key for me, Vaughn.
Yeah, and I could not agree more. Just because you tell them or say it doesn't mean they heard it in a way that they can translate it into action, perfect action in their brains. Turning to you, Danny, what are some of the keys in your experience to making sure you got high level performance management with your team?
I think, thank you, Vaughn. I think it has a lot to do with upfront setting the expectations, really defining where we're going as a team, and then how each individual contributes to where we're going, how it's going to be measured, what processes are involved. To both of your points, it's really important to not assume. You never really want to assume that people are understanding the direction you're giving them. You never want to assume that they understand anything. You always want to confirm it, and you want them to put it in their own words. But I think it's really important to establish where you're headed and how you're going to get there and how it's going to be measured, and be reviewing that with that team member on a regular basis so that they understand how they contribute. It's, again, many people view it as a punitive thing, as you say, but it can also be a reward-based thing. So if you're showing that people that you're measuring their performance and you're measuring the team's performance, and by doing this on a regular basis, you can show them how well they're performing rather than how poorly they're performing. It can be a metric. The metrics can be used for celebration rather than for punitive measures.
Yeah, could not agree more. And you had a couple really key nuggets in there, Danny, and I want to seize on for a minute. You talked about metrics or measures. So often when we're setting goals or expectations with our team members, we're not putting some level of measurement into it. And I got to tell you, when you add, not everything is driving sales, and not everything's driving productivity. It may, but there's got to be some kind of measure, something that we'll know whether a person is performing this task or this duty or achieving this project, the importance of measurement. And then the second part is regular. Now, regular feedback, regular discussion, it requires follow-up and check-in and making sure things are happening. And the way I often describe it with folks I'm coaching or training is that's going to differ from person to person. But if you're through regular feedback, that regular feedback is as often as it takes for that person to earn your trust, that you can start backing off and back off some more and back off some more because they got it. Some people require more frequent check-ins, inspection of what you expect. Others will earn your trust, and in eventuality, everybody's going to earn your trust if you give them the opportunity to do it, and you delegate it, you empower them, you get things off your plate onto their plate, and you give them this regular feedback, which is subjective to some point, depending on the individual and their ability to learn and grow and capture and execute what you're looking for. And you can start backing off. And then the last one, and that I picked up on in your comments, Danny, which I call a ninja trick, is ensuring that they heard you by having them repeat that back to you. And talk about that a little bit more. What's your best practice, Danny, when you're sharing expectations or a project, what you're needing somebody to get done? What's your best practice in making sure they heard you? What steps do you take to have them repeat that back to you?
Yeah, thanks, Vaughn. It's really simple, but it's very frequently overlooked. And as Tony said, as managers and leaders, and typically, in my honest experience, I've seen this get worse and worse the higher someone gets in an organization. We begin to perceive ourselves as being incredibly good communicators, because we must have done something right to communicate things well in order to move up in the organization. But the reality is, a lot of times when we move up in an organization, we can become more detached from what's really going on. And so it's really important to understand the level of understanding of the people you're talking to. And so it's as simple as asking them to repeat back what their understanding of the conversation was, or what their understanding of the expectations was, put it in their own words. I usually ask people to put it in their own words because some people are really good at just repeating it back verbatim, and that doesn't necessarily indicate that they understand what it means. And if I have any concern that they don't understand what it means, or I'm concerned about their ability to execute, the follow-up question to that is, so how are you going to approach this? What specific actions are you going to take to accomplish this? And if it's a really critical project, or I'm beginning to get concerned about the level of understanding or the level of actions required, then I'm going to ask them to actually write it out as an action plan.
Get it in writing. And great tips. Couldn't agree more. And Tony, as well as I, that during this podcast, somebody listening to this is starting to roll their eyes and say, God, I don't have time for all that. Are you kidding me? That's a load of horse malarkey. That's all theoretical. Nobody has time to tell somebody what to do, have them repeat it back, in some instances, put it in writing. And as we were discussing putting this podcast together, which was shocking to me because we never practice any of this stuff, but that's honest. We just wing it every damn time, and we're experts at winging. But Tony, you made a great point of the value and around doing this up front, because what does it do in the end?
Ultimately, it creates clarity for you as a leader with regard to, is your message being understood? But you bring up a good point, which is, how do we manage our time? What do we feel is important? So anytime anybody says they're too busy, it's generally because they don't have it as high enough of a priority, or they don't think it's valuable enough, or in many cases, which they won't admit, they're not comfortable doing it. Sometimes it leads to a specific or certain level of confrontation. And a lot of people just don't have that personality in them. They just avoid confrontation at all costs. But most of the time, if you're doing it right and you're doing it frequent and you're listening and you're doing all the things you guys are talking about with repeating it back, it's not going to be confrontational. It's going to be conversational. And that's what you want. You want a true, open, honest conversation with the people that you work with, because that's the only way you're going to determine whether the message you're giving is being understood and the feedback is actually getting through. And for you to be able to determine that, yes, I got the right person here. That when we work together and we collaborate on this stuff, we get stuff done, because the bottom line ends up being the result. And what generally happens is when we don't get the result that we're looking for, we always look at that individual first. And I never do that, because I always want to look at me first. What did I say? What can I do different? Was I clear? Even though I think I was. So doing all those things you talk about helps that process, but you have to make time. And it has to be a number one priority, because being people and being able to understand what they can accomplish, and you knowing what they can accomplish, will help determine how much you can give them, how much you can delegate to them. You have to make it a priority. You have to make it one of your platinum activities, as we always talk about in the time management world, because that's where the results are going to come from.
And those results, you made a point in there that's really important, is their results are your results. You're being measured by their performance. So if you are of the mindset that it's their fault that they're not performing, then you need to go look in the mirror, because it's your fault that they're not performing. You've got to embrace that crap, because there's no other way you're going to be successful unless you own your own best habits or best behaviors, your vital habits, doing these things we're sharing. And because we didn't practice this again. Tony, how many times in the thousands of opportunities you've had that you've been talking to a direct report, you've given them some instructions of what they need to do, work on, improve, a project they need to complete, whatever it is, and you've had them repeat it back. How many times did they nail exactly what you needed them to do the first time?
There's two parts to that. One is it's relatively rare that they've nailed it because they generally didn't expect that question to come. You basically threw them a curveball, and most of them can't hit it. So that's which is good because it allows you to repeat everything that you just got through talking about to ensure that there was understanding. The other part of it is they nail it. They repeat everything back to you. And Danny made a great point of you just want them to do it in their own words. But the last part of that is they have to go out and do it. So them repeating it back to you in their words, your words, anybody's words doesn't ensure that they're going to get the results that you're looking for. So that's why when we talk about, back to the beginning, the frequency of communication is we're always circling back to ensure that the message was understood and to get feedback from them as to what they need to perform at that level. And if that doesn't happen frequently, you're not going to know because everybody gets busy and they start doing their own thing and a lot of things get forgotten. But frequency, that helps.
Frequency, follow up based on the level of trust they've earned with you. And again, you can back off as they earn your trust. They can execute, they can perform, but and again, back to the eye rolling of some executive or manager out there listening to this is, I don't have time for all that's going to take forever. Maybe they don't sound exactly like that, but similar to that. But our point is always, this is fire prevention, not fire, which helps you save firefighting times. Put this work in the beginning, you're saving yourself a ton of work in the end. And let's not forget that if they're not performing, then at some point they may quit. You may have to fire them. Again, that's going to be probably your fault, not their fault. But then you've got to spend all that time performance managing them from a progressive discipline standpoint. There's got to be write-ups that they're going to start getting disengaged. It's extra time on your part. If they quit or you have to fire them, I got to interview, replace, and retrain. Think about this little extra time you're going to spend in the beginning, setting the proper expectations with highly effective communication, getting used to having them repeat back to you what you're having them commit to, so that there's 100% clarity around the expectations. That little bit of time saves you so much frustration and time in the long run. It's not extra time, it's less freaking time if you do this every single time. And by the way, you're going to look like a damn hero as a leader in your organization because your team's going to be knocking it out of the park. Using a baseball analogy, they're not always going to be able to hit that curveball. You hit them, but with this practice, or you throw at them, that with practice, they're going to get it and they're going to start putting the bat on the ball. And the benefactor and all that is not only them and them feeling good about their success and confidence, it's you as their leader are going to look like a damn hero and superstar because your team performs better than any other team in the organization. I promise you. So we're coming up on our time limit on this, but Danny, I want to turn back to you. Any final really important thoughts as laying this foundation for any leader, manager who's listening to this podcast today? Any other valid points you want to make before we close this out?
Thanks, Vaughn. Yeah, I would just add to piggyback on the time thing. I've heard this saying a few times, and I think it's really relevant in this moment. is it's amazing how we don't have time to do something, and yet we always have to find the time to do it over when it's done wrong. And that's really something that comes into play in this particular situation. If you're proactive and you're regular and frequent in your communication, you avoid rework, you avoid the need to have things done twice, you avoid the need to correct things, because you and your team are much more aligned and on the same page about what the expectations are and how to go accomplish those tasks. And to the previous point, the first few times you do this and you ask your team member to repeat back what their understanding was, it's going to be a little awkward and they're probably not going to have understood it the way you hoped. But with that practice and with that repetition, you'll find that the two of you get more and more on the same page. It becomes much more efficient. Those conversations become shorter and the performance will guaranteed improve.
Well said, Danny. I'll turn the mic over to you, Tony, for your final thoughts or the final keys to effective performance management.
I guess the last thing I would say is the words like fairness sometimes are overrated, because we always talk about having to be fair to everybody. Fairness really is about what we're talking about, the level of communication. It doesn't mean, for me in the restaurant world, I wanted my best team on the field. I wanted the best players in there. It wasn't like I'm spreading it out evenly so that everybody gets the same chance. What was fair is that I let everybody know where they stand and let everybody know what they needed to do to perform at the level to get them on the field. To me, it was about frequency, clarity, all the things that we talked about to ensure that everybody had a fair chance, because they had to earn the right to be put in that situation. And there's no other way to do it unless you're going to dedicate yourself and your time to ensure that they understand.
I love that point you made, Tony, around fairness, because I look at it similarly in that, and I'm going to say it just differently with a Southern accent, that is it not unfair to be setting your direct reports up for success? There's not, unless they're a psychopath, there's not one single team member that comes to work every day wanting to do a bad job. They come to work to do a good job. And most of the time it has been, unless they were just a bad hire, bad fit for the job, that's a whole nother podcast. But unless they're a really bad fit for the job, you hired them, they're in the role, you're setting them up for success. If you're not being as clear as we're discussing during this podcast with setting your expectations, not only what's expected of them, but feedback on their performance or how they're performing to those expectations, then you're being very unfair to your employees, because they need that. They want to be successful. And your lack of clarity and investment in your time and care about their performance is so unfair to them. But I promise you, most managers don't think about it like that. And that's again, the ninja part of all this is if you shift your mindset to think about what you control, some of these best practices we shared with you this morning around setting expectations, having them repeat it back, having some measures. We're going to talk in a future podcast about SMART goals and setting properly measurable goals with folks. The frequency and working up to it or back from it, to give your team the ability to go perform and get practice and the repetitions to be successful. If you want to be successful, you got to have successful people. And we just given you in this 15 or 20 minutes, how long have we been going today? If you incorporate this as a leader in your organization, just this one thing alone, you've advanced your ability to execute and be successful like nothing else you can do. There's only one other thing you can do that'll set you up better, and that's hire great people, which is again another podcast. So Gentlemen, Danny, Tony, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Everybody that's listening to this podcast, we appreciate your loyalty and all our many fans out there. And we will talk to you all again very soon. Thanks.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of the Business Mechanic Show. If today's content resonates with you, then you're going to love what we have to offer. For those of you who are ready to take your business or personal career to the next level, we have an array of training and coaching services tailored just for you. From performance coaching designed to enhance your potential, to executive coaching that guides leaders to steer their ships towards greater success. Are you in sales management or looking to fortify your leadership acumen? Dive into our sales management training and coaching. Not only will it sharpen your strategies, but it will also provide you an ROI that's undeniable. Remember, the best investment you can make is in yourself and your team. For those seeking flexible learning options, we're excited to share our online and in-person management leadership classes. These aren't just your typical courses. They are meticulously crafted, ensuring that they align with your unique needs and aspirations. And the best part, prices start at just $47 per month, making top-tier coaching and training accessible for everyone. Your growth, both personally and professionally, can have a ripple effect, the one I call the transformational triangle of change. The skills you learn, the perspectives you gain, and the efficiencies you create can translate into increased revenues, more cohesive teams, and an enriched company culture. So why wait? The potential ROI on this investment isn't just in dollars, it's in the progressive future you're carving out for yourself and your organization. Thanks once again for tuning in. And remember, every business needs a tune-up every now and then. Let the Business Mechanic Show be your guide. Check out our website, rdltraining.com, to discover more details on our programs and coaches. We have a link in the show notes to guide you there. Until next time, we're out of here.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.